Hello and welcome back to another Particle Niagara knowledge. It's another Niagara Particles video for Unreal Engine. Today we're going to be looking at something that a few people have requested, mainly because it was a kind of preset that was in Cascade, but it is missing when it comes to Niagara. So what we're going to end up with is a ribbon particle. We're going to have two sockets on an item or a character or something, and we're going to have this ribbon go between those two sockets and act like a kind of weapon trail, like a smear frame, or, you know, some sort of VFX doodad. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. So the first thing that we will be doing is we are going to make a new Niagara system. We're going to create an empty system. I'm going to call this tutorial trail. Now we have an empty doodad. We are going to right click. We're going to add an emitter. We are going to look for an empty emitter, my favorite emitter. And first thing we're going to do, we're going to delete our sprite renderer. And instead we are going to select a ribbon renderer. For the material, for the time being, I'm just going to choose something, I don't know, something pink. For the facing mode, however, we are going to choose custom side vector. Now, in the initialize particle settings, we are going to keep the lifetime, let's put it at like 2 seconds or something. And then down here, ribbon attributes, ribbon width mode will be direct set. Let's put this at, I don't know, 40 for now. Now, the next thing we're going to do is the ribbon facing mode, and we are going to set this to direct set. And instead of the ribbon facing vector just being a simple vector doodad, we're going to select this drop-down menu, and we are going to look for owner system Z axis. Bammy wham. Sweet. Now, the last thing that we are going to do is we're going to go to our emitter update, and we need to decide how we're going to be spawning these particles. Now, for ribbon particles, it's usually best, especially for really fast-moving ones, you want to use spawn per frame. Spawn per frame. If we were using the spawn per unit, so let's spawn a new particle every 10 units or something, if our weapon ends up in between, you know, one of those 10 units, there'll actually be a gap between the, you know, the weapon and the trail. And even though it is pretty small, it is quite noticeable at times. Now, the other thing that you could do is, you know, set the spawn per unit to 1 particle section per unit. However, that would mean that when we move the sword 10 units between frames, it will spawn 10 separate ribbon segments, which is, you know, pretty overkill. So this is probably one of the only times that you'll actually want to use spawn per frame. So with all of that done, we can put this little doodad in the world, and as we start moving it around, you can see that it's always facing the up vector of this actor of this system. So if we get a rotationator and we rotate it this way, then you can see here that it is facing still up with the Z. So you can imagine this is a sword or something, and as it arcs this way and rotates and keeps going and rotates and keeps going, it's always going to perfectly align with the weapon. So that's that part out of the way. The next thing we're going to do, let me just go to our weapon actor. I'm just going to smack one of these bad boys on there. And let's just, I don't know, let's say on begin play, when this thingo is spawned, spawn system attached. The system will be the tutorial trail doodad. Let's just, I don't know, snap to target, and we want to get what we're actually attaching it to. So in this case, it would be the item mesh, which is a variable that I set manually for reasons. but this might just be your static mesh or your scaly mesh or whatever it might be. So now when I spawn this weapon, you can see we have this trail. It is a bit of a nightmare because it isn't in the right spot. It's also really thin. You can see that it's just at the origin of this actor. Not ideal. So what we will be doing is we are going to position this in between two sockets. My weapons are skeletal meshes. Yours might be static meshes, but you can add sockets to static meshes if your weapons are static meshes. And what I am doing is we have the Trail 01 top and the Trail 01 bottom. Now, there are several ways that you could do this. You could get all socket names, loop through them, and then use name to string conversion, and then use the starts with prefix, trail, I forget what I called it. You could do that and, you know, get the first two thingos and use them. What we're going to do, we're just going to hard code it because we know exactly what the trail sockets names are. So let's go item mesh, get socket location. We are going to get Trail 01 top, and we are going to get Trail 01 bottom. So in order to get the midpoint between these, we are going to, you guessed it, add them together and divide it by 2. Just do the, come on. I hate Unreal 5. Why do you do this to me? Convert pin, float, divide by 2. So we're getting the average position between these two sockets. And so what we're going to do, we're going to set our spawn system attached. We're going to keep world position, and we're going to set the location to be, is going to be this. And then the rotation is going to be this one minus this one. This will give us the difference between the two sockets. So the direction from one to the other, rotation from Z, obviously because it's, you know, facing the Z axis. So if we have a look at it now, then when we spawn in a sword, you can see that this trail is following the sword perfectly, but it just isn't big enough. Now I'm just going to take this moment to change the material to something that isn't so blinding. So let's actually just make a new material called Tutorial Trail Matte. And we are just going to, I don't know, make it a color. Some sort of color. Let's just make it, I don't know, gold. And we're going to make this two-sided. And I guess that's it. And we will grab this weapon, and again, you can see that the trail follows it around perfectly, but it isn't long enough. The tip of the weapon and the hilt of the weapon are, you know, not being trailed. So all we have to do now is when we spawn this bad boy, we are going to get the vector between the two sockets. We are going to get distance. No, wait, no. We're going to get vector length. Vector length, that's right. That's basically what a vector length is just... And then what we will do is, on the other side of this system that we've spawned, we are going to set float parameter. And with this length of, you know, the distance between the two sockets, we are going to make a user parameter called trail width. You could try and set the ribbon width manually. Good luck. It can be a little bit finicky with the names and stuff. I prefer just using a user parameter. So we're going to call it trail width. And then in here, we will go here, user exposed, make new, common, float. This is called trail width. And then down this side, we are going to go ribbon width here. We're going to go trail width, our user parameter, and we hit save. So now when we create this doodad, it will get the width by getting the distance between the top and bottom sockets. Let's see if that actually worked. There's our weapon. There's our trail from tip to butt. And you can see it's always following the weapon exactly. Now, you might be thinking, Charlie, this looks like hot garbage, and you would be absolutely correct. This does look like hot garbage. So one thing that we're going to do is we're going to make it not look like complete shit. We are going to be using some of these red nodes, which automatically tie in to particles and stuff. And we're also going to be using the dynamic parameter node. Now, if you get confused about any of this stuff that I'm doing, I have a video about materials and particles, how they kind of work together. So I would recommend watching that before you continue on with this video. But what we will do is we're going to get the particle relative time, which is basically its lifespan from 0 to 1. We're going to 1 minus that. And then what we can do is, let's just get a texture going. We'll get our noise texture. Cloud noise baked. And then we will get one of the channels here. We're going to create a height lerp. If you don't know what a height lerp is, just check out the video on my channel once again. So what this will do, let's actually put this into a dither. Dithering is quite nice. And then this will go into the opacity mask. Obviously, if we're using opacity mask, this needs to be a masked material. And let's just put this random color back into the base color. So now when we get our sword, you can see that it fades in a noisy way, which, already looks quite appealing. One thing that you'll notice is that the texture is moving along with the weapon, which can look a little bit funky. In this case, it's not too bad, but usually with weapon trails, you want the texture to be kind of static in the world. So what we're going to do is go to our ribbon renderer, and we're going to go to the UV0 settings. We are going to go tiled by distance. And what this is going to do is it's going to make the texture kind of stay in place in the world, if that makes sense. You can probably see the difference there. So we could probably make this look a little bit cooler by stretching this texture kind of out more. So let's get our text coordinates and just plug that into the UVs. Let's make the U tiling 0.3 compared to 1 in the V direction. Another thing we could do is add some contrast to our height lerp. This will give it a more kind of stylized feel. Stylized, Ghibli. We're just going to give it a cheeky bit of contrast. So now we have this thing, and you can see when it fades out, it kind of looks, more interesting. So this is starting to look a bit better. Obviously, it's a little bit too long for, just a regular kind of smear frame. One thing that is bugging me, however, it's probably bugging you as well, is that even when our weapon's moving slowly, it's creating the weapon trail. Now, what are we going to do about this? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So the next part's going to be a tiny little bit more advanced, you could say. We're actually going to create a custom Niagara module. So let's go here, Niagara module script. Let's just call this get speed. Niagara get speed. I don't know. This might look a little bit foreign to you. It's kind of like a material or a blueprint, but completely different. All you need to know is that we are going to get the emitter. Where the fuck is it? We are going to get the engine owner velocity. We are going to get the length of this velocity. And then we are going to set it right here. And we're going to make new. It's going to be a common It's going to be a float. Let's call it emitter speed. And we're going to put this into there. I think we need to library visibility exposed. We are going to click this down here where you can see local emitter speed. We're going to right click it. We are going to change namespace and we're going to set it to particles, I believe. And so on particle spawn, we are going to get speed. Wow. And it's setting a variable called emitter speed or something. And now in tutorial trail, we'll be able to get the speed, emitter speed. We're going to do this on particle spawn because we don't want it to change over time. So we just want to set it on the particle or the ribbon segment and then keep it the same the entire time. We don't want particles to care about the emitter, you know, in the future. And now when we go back to our material, we can actually get our dynamic parameter and let's put it into the emissive as well, just to have some fun. And when it moves fast, it will glow very brightly, up to like 1,000 units. So you can see here, not glowing very bright, but then when it moves, it's incredibly bright. That's because the value is going up past 1,000. So what can we do with this? Well, we can get this and, I don't know, divide it by 500. That's going to mean that when it's at a value of 500, the value will be 1. We're going to saturate this, and then we are just going to multiply after our height lerp, you know, noise, whatever. We are going to multiply that by this. We're going to chuck that into the contrast, and let's just put our color back into here. So what this is going to do is when our thingo is moving slowly, it isn't going to spawn the trail. So you can see here, as I'm just like turning around, we start turning around really quick. You can see it kind of doing it a little bit, but it's only when we, you know, really swing it that it's going to be more intense. So maybe let's divide this by 1,000, and then also let's offset it by like 100 or something. So now this should look a little bit less extreme. Yeah, okay, you can see there. When we're not moving, it doesn't trail very much, but when we do swing it, it is very, very swingy. It also really helps with the startup and the end of the trail to make it not look as like sudden, I guess. It just makes it look, you know, a lot more natural, I guess. Now, if we wanted to turn this into, you know, something a little bit fancier, maybe like you know, a flame effect. I know people love flaming swords and stuff. It's very, very anime. Let's just get this and plug it into a lerp, I guess. Just a 2 lerp, please. This is going to serve as the alpha, and we are just going to lerp between, I don't know, 0 can be a deep blue color, and this one, we're going to chuck it into the base color and the emissive. This one is going to be, I don't know, like a kind of cyan, but like it's going to be a value of 50 or something really intense. And now all of a sudden we have this, you know, glowing, interesting effect or something. I don't really know. And so there you have it. We basically have weapon trails. I guess the only challenge might be, you know, kind of managing it. You know, how do we spawn it and destroy it? A good idea would be to manually activate and deactivate the particle system. That could be handled with, you know, a component pretty easily. You could use anim notifiers, which I have a video on, where you can just, you know, trigger an event or a set of events in an animation. You could even pass the weapon trail system type as a variable into the anim notifier. So if you had like a special attack that, you know, you wanted to add this effect to a weapon or something, you could do that in an anim notify. So if you had like a special area attack, but your character could have, you know, lots of different weapon types of different sizes, different shapes, all that kind of stuff. this would, again, just work perfectly for that use case. So I hope that you found that handy. I hope that you learned something along the way. I can't wait to see what you do with it. And if you do have any questions about this tutorial or any of my others, feel free to join our Discord, which you can find in the description as always. I am always streaming live on Twitch, so make sure you follow that as well. And lastly but not leastly, a big shout out to the patrons that keep this channel alive and kicking. And if you would like to join them and support the channel monetarily, you can do so for as little as $1 per month in the little link in the description. So I guess with that, we say goodbye. Goodbye.